What's up, team? It's Tommy here with Everyday Finance, and today I'm going to be talking about how to go about building your credit from scratch. Okay, so if you're someone who's in a situation whether you haven't had credit before and you don't know where to start, or you're someone who's had some credit issues in the past and you want to figure out how you can get back into the game, then this is going to be the video for you. So you don't want to miss this. Stay tuned. Now, this is a video that was requested from you guys, and I had someone who left a comment saying that they want to know how to go about building out your credit from the scratch or from the start. And so I figured I'd just kind of break that down and start off with a little bit about my credit journey and where I came from. Now, currently my FICO score is actually, it kind of fluctuates between a low 800 to a high 700. And I'll actually shot a complete video showing you my credit score and everything that I'll link to down below, so you can check that out if you want to see more about that. But you know, it wasn't always that high, right? And I think it kind of goes to show that it's really just, it's more of a game where you're just you got to kind of keep your head down and just go step by step, little by little. And over time, you're going to see, you know, you'll look back at where you were a year, 2 years from now, and you'll realize how big of a change that you had. Because this is kind of the first time that I've been around or been in the 800s. Typically, I'd probably say the last couple of years I was closer to the 750s to 720 range, and that's kind of where my score had stayed. But you know, fortunately, I haven't had to deal with the harder situations to deal with, which is like more the major derogatories. But I've had to deal with things that, you know, the majority of, not majority, but a large part of Americans have had to deal with. And it's going to be things like credit card debt, right? Maxing out your cards, you know, dealing with collections, medical collections, things like that, right? Where you having to deal with, you know, debt collectors calling your phone 24/7. And I've been able to kind of, I've had to experience that and kind of seen, you know, as the legislation came in and how they went about changing things like that, right? But you know, it wasn't really until I graduated that I realized how crucial or important credit is. And that's whenever I kind of started working towards improving my credit. So this is going to be the information that I'm going to share with you here is really things that I've had to experience myself and go through, or the things that I've helped other people go through. You know, as I was fixing my credit and people were seeing my credit was improving, they would ask me for tips and advice, and I would kind of try to work them through the process and try to get them as high or as close to me as possible when it came to my credit score. So these are kind of the experiences that I had that I'm going to be jumping into and explaining for you guys. With that said, don't ever feel like you can't reach your financial goals, or it's, you know, this stuff is too complicated. That's kind of what this video is about, is kind of showing you that there's really a few things that you need to focus on, and all the other stuff around you is going to be more so noise. You know, I'm sure you've seen tons of videos of people saying, you know, you got to do this, that, you know, you got to shoot a letter here. They tell you all this crazy stuff that you got to do. You know, you got to block your credit, you know, you got to lock your credit up so no one can see it, this, that, and the other. But I'm going to be breaking down just a simple process that you can follow. That's going to be a lot easier than, you know, you having to, you know, do all this crazy stuff to try to get your score to actually get to where you want it to be for your goals. Now, first, before we jump into it, I want to break down the actual FICO score range, right? To make sure that you guys have an idea, to understand how the score works. And then I can show you guys, I'm going to explain to you guys which parts of the score that you want to leverage to be able to see the best results. Okay. Now, when it comes to your credit score, your FICO, I'm talking specifically your FICO credit score, it actually has a range of 300 to 850. So the lowest credit score that you can have, the lowest FICO score you can have is a 300. The highest you can have is a 850. Okay. So that gives about 550 points in the middle to play with, where you could either lose off 550 or you can gain off 550 to be able to get to the top score. Now, when it comes to me viewing my scores, I typically use my FICO. In my previous video where I showed my scores, I showed you guys my into my actual myfico.com account. The reason why I use them is they're the creators of the FICO score, and they actually show you all your different FICO scores. Now, typically what I recommend that you do is don't worry about signing up for this website, because I think it's like $40 a month or something. I recommend that you only sign up for that website whenever you're getting close to, you know, needing to, you know, actually get access to some sort of credit. So if I know that I need to apply for a mortgage or I need to apply for a car soon, then I might, you know, sign up for my FICO to just see where my scores are, to get an idea of what the lenders are going to see whenever they pull my credit. What I typically recommend when it comes to credit monitoring is using one of those apps that kind of, you know, they're pulling your credit more often, right? Things like, you know, a Credit Karma or a Credit Sesame. Now, I recommend that you use them for credit monitoring, right? To make sure that there's nothing negative popping up on your credit. But I do not recommend you even look at their scores that they show you. The scores they show you aren't accurate. They're a different type of score that lenders will not see that number that you're seeing, okay? They will see the numbers that you're gonna see on the myfico.com website. Okay, so only use Credit Karma and Credit Sesame to just make sure that there's no issues going on in your credit. Now, the next thing is you don't need an 850 credit score. I'm not going for an 850. Honestly, if my score dropped down 30 points today, I wouldn't care. I'd still be fine. I'd be happy with it because I know that you typically just want to be in the range of about 720 to 740, maybe 750. When you're in that range, you're going to be getting approved for the majority of types of credit that you're trying to get, and you're going to be able to get the best rates when it comes to those different types of credit, right? And so that's really all you need. No one really cares about the 850. It's cool to say you have an 850, but it doesn't matter. I don't even care that I even broke into the 800s, to be quite honest. As long as I stay above about 730, I'm cool. I'm perfectly fine with it. Now, whenever it comes to how your credit score is actually calculated, it's broken down into five categories, right? And those categories are broken down into 35%, 30, 15, 10, and 10. Okay, that's the percentage that's broken down to, and I explain each of those percentages here. The 35% is payment history. That's roughly about 192 points that you can get from this category. Payment history is just, are you making your payments on time? But it goes deeper than that because it looks at, how often are you 30 days late, 60 days late, 90 days late? Do you have any collections? Do you have any charge-offs, any repos, bankruptcies? All those are really impacting this section right here, the 35%. Okay, the next section is amounts owed. That's 165 points. This category just has to do with how much credit card debt you have, point blank period, right? That's 30% is just looking at how much of your credit cards you're using. The next one is 15% length of credit. This one's harder. It just means how long has your credit profile been open. So that's 82 points roughly. 10% is credit mix. They want to see that you're using different types of credit, right? So you have maybe installment loans, you have revolving accounts like credit cards, things like that. And the final 10% is credit inquiries, which is another 55 points. I don't know, everyone focuses the most on these credit inquiries, but they're really not that big of a deal. Okay, but those are the categories, right? And when it comes to what I think is the easiest section to manipulate, I typically recommend that you focus first on the amounts owed section. That one was 30% of your score, and it was 165 points. Okay, the reason why I mentioned this one first is because this all has to do with how much of your credit you're using, right? So you're not going to be able to affect any other section as quickly as you can affect this one. So for example, even in my situation, I might be close to the 8 or around the 800, right, credit score. But if I maxed out my credit cards today, I'd probably jump down to like the low 700s at best. Okay, and it's just because of this category and how crucial this category is. Now, first off, if you're building your credit and you don't have any type of credit cards, that's the first step I would take, is try to get a low-level unsecured credit card. If you're a kid in school, typically, you can get like bigger banks. I would go to wherever you have a bank account at. If you have a bank account, go to that bank, like for example, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, whatever it is, Chase, and try to get their low-tier card. Typically, it's going to be, they either will have a student card, they'll brand it as like a credit card for students, or it'll be their lower tier card that has no annual fee, nothing like that, right? That's what I recommend you sign up for. It should be easier for you to get approved, especially if you already have a banking relationship with them. And then you also don't have to worry about putting a deposit down for like a secured card, okay? But if you don't get approved for any type of unsecured cards like that, then the next step I would do is go for fintech unsecured cards. Those are going to be cards for they're really, these fintech companies that have been around less than 10 years, some of them even less than 5. And these companies are typically going to look at other data besides your credit score to approve you for the card. They'll typically look at your banking data. Okay, so that's the next option that I would do, is if I can't get an unsecured card from a big bank, preferably my bank that I use for, I have an account with, right? If I don't get approved for that, then the next thing I'm gonna do is go to a fintech company and see if I can get approved for those. And guys, I'll link to a bunch of these fintech companies. I've shot videos on these guys. I'll link to them down below for you to take a look at. Okay. Now, if I don't get approved by any of these fintech companies, or it's just taking time. I know especially these cards are just starting to get popular and they're just kind of rolling out, so their operations aren't as buttoned up as you would see at the bigger banks, so it could take you a lot longer to get approved. If that's the case, then you want to go down to the next tier, and that's working with secured cards. Okay, I've shot videos on secured cards. I'll link to them down below. But with these secured cards, typically what happens is I look for secured cards that have a graduation track. What that means is these secured cards eventually, after a certain period of you having good payment history, you know, you're not missing any payments with that card, they'll upgrade you to their lower tiered unsecured card. Okay, so it kind of puts you back in a good position, and you get your deposit back and everything. That's what I typically recommend if you don't have any type of credit, right? If you're just starting off, those are the steps that you want to follow. Let's say that you're in a situation where you have credit cards, but you have credit card debt, right? Maybe you've maxed out your cards. Okay, there's really three things that you can do. You can go eat any of these three ways. One is paying down your credit cards, the obvious choice, right? Pay down your credit cards. But some of you guys might be in a situation where, you know, you want to pay down your credit cards, but if you owe $2,000-$3,000 in credit card debt, you might not make enough to be able to just throw all your check on that credit card, right? You have other expenses going on. We all know, right? We got life going on. We can't just throw all our money in one card. So what you want to do is you want to instead do a combination of all of these. You want to pay down your credit cards, and then the other option is you can also try to get an increase to your credit limit. So reaching out to your bank and seeing if they'll increase the credit limit that you currently have on your card. That'll help your credit utilization, which is how this section is, the amounts owed category is calculated. Again, remember what I said at the beginning, it's how much credit card debt you have, right? So they look at what percentage of your available credit are you using. If I have $1,000 credit card or credit limit, right, on my credit card, and I'm only using $100 of that credit card, that's a 10% credit utilization, right? I'm only using 10% of that available credit. So you want to be as close to zero as possible is what I typically recommend. One way to help you get closer to zero is by increasing your credit limit. The next thing you can do is get access to new credit. Okay, so that means applying for other credit cards and getting approved for those, and that's going to help increase your credit limit, which means your utilization is going to go down. Really, my favorite thing to do is a combination of all of those. So you're still paying down your credit cards, but you're also trying to get credit limit increases, and you're applying for new credit. If you're doing all three of those, that's where you're going to see the biggest jump in this category. And guys, I'm not even kidding you. I've seen people who've taken action on those steps and seen their credit score literally shoot up 100 points. They were at like a low 600, and then now they're all of a sudden breaking into the 700 club and able to get like approved for, you know, mortgages or loans or whatever it is, right? So definitely something that you want to look at first. That's the first thing I would look at. Okay, the next thing is you're going to want to look at your payment history. This was the biggest category of your score, right? This was 35% of your score. Now the payment category, the payment history category, you know, first off, the thing that I want to say right off the bat is if you're just new, you're just starting to build your credit, do not miss any payments on accounts that are reporting to your credit. Do not miss any payments. That's what I typically recommend, because that's where you're going to see your credit to start, you know, your credit score is going to start getting dinged every time you're missing payments. Okay, now I typically recommend, if you're in a situation where you think you're going to miss a payment, reach out to that company and see if they have some sort of program where they can help you out. If you're in a situation where, you know, it's just getting a little tough to make ends meet for that week or whatever, or for that month or whatever it is, right? And another note, 30 days late is not as bad as a 60-day late. And a 60-day late is not as bad as a 90-day late. Okay, so whenever you're 30 days late on something, banks can look at that and say, hey, you know, maybe something happened, maybe he missed a payment, but then he got back on track. When you're 60 days late, they're like, you know, he's missing it for 2 months. Now it's starting to look like he has no intention of paying. And when you're 90 days late, you're pretty much written off at that point. They're like, okay, this dude's not going to pay this card. So he's not going to pay this account off at all, right? So the later it gets, the more of a worse effect it's going to have on your credit. Okay, so that's really the biggest things when it comes to that category, is making sure that you don't miss any payments. Now, if you've had any other issues on your credit, where let's say maybe you're dealing with some collections, you're dealing with some charge-offs, late payments, you know, any other things, right? Bankruptcies, things like that, repos, then I've shot videos on most of those issues. What you can do is check out in the description down below. I'll link to a bunch of those videos that you can check out. So you'll see it down in the description. Again, you just click on those videos and they'll walk you step by step how to deal with that specific situation. Also, make sure, that's why I want to make sure that you guys are subscribed, because I will be shooting even more videos about credit. And if you're looking to improve your credit, then you want to make sure that you stay in you stay in contact. You're not missing any of my videos that I'm releasing. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Alrighty. Now these final categories, they're a lot harder to manipulate, or they take time, or it could be a situation where it's not necessarily worth the trouble of you even trying. Okay. And those three categories are length of credit. Length of credit, it's just about how much time your accounts have been open for, right? So that one you can't really do much. You just, when it comes to primary credit lines, you just kind of have to just let the, you got to just kind of keep your accounts open. That's what's great with the credit cards is, if you are getting credit cards, credit cards are revolving, right? They're not like installment loans. Installment loans is like, I got a loan on a car. Eventually, I know that loan's going to stop, and I know when eventually my final payment's going to come in, they're going to close that account off. Whereas with credit cards, they stay open as long as you're making payments and you're using the card from time to time. Typically, a bank's not going to close that card, right? And so that's why I typically, when I have credit cards, I try not to close them. If it's a situation where it has an annual fee or something and I want to avoid it, I'll try to downgrade it before I even think about canceling that card. Now, the other category is going to be credit mix. That you can add on different credit lines, mix of different credit lines, and that's where you're going to see a big value with that one. The next category besides that is credit inquiries. That's another 10%. And this, for some reason, is the category everyone's so focused on. They're like, these inquiries just dropped my score 50 points or 100 points. That's not the case. It's typically a bunch of different factors that are causing your score to drop, but they're not even worth the hassle of dealing with. One point is that there's so little information with those that it's hard for you to even try to dispute it or anything. And two, they don't even really impact your credit after like a year, right? And after 2 years, they're removed from your credit. So it's not even worth for you even trying to dispute those things. So really, if you look at it, I've kind of broken down every single one of the different categories. If you really look at it, if you just focus on those two main categories, that's where you're going to see the biggest increase or the biggest jump on your score. Okay. So that's why I typically recommend that people focus on those main categories first, and then you can kind of focus on the other ones. But if it's like the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of your success with your credit score is going to come from 20%, right? And that 20% is these first two categories, the way I look at it. Okay. But just by you following those steps, that should be enough for you to be able to get close, if not into the 700 club. And once you get into the 700 credit score club, then you're going to see that a lot of doors are going to open up for you, and you're going to, you're not going to have to worry about getting approved for different types of credit, because that your score is at a point where you're the exact target audience for whatever type of credit that you're applying for with the banks, right? You're the person that they're actually looking for, right? And so that's going to be the gist of it, guys. Now, if you want more videos, or you want to learn more about how to build and leverage your credit, and you want to see more videos like that, be sure that you hit the subscribe button down below so you don't miss any of my other videos, and make sure you hit the like button so I know that I'm on the right track with these types of videos that I'm making. Okay. Also, throw down in the comments anything else, any other questions that you might have when it comes to this video, or questions about other things that you're curious about when it has to do with your finances or your credit in general. Alrighty. So that's going to be the gist of this video, guys. I appreciate y'all taking the time to watch, and I will see you at the next one. Peace.